In this video, I'm going to assemble the bottom drawer of the cabinet and mock up the shaft to show that it actually works, thus greatly improving my ability to sleep at night. Now, I want the best accuracy possible for the mitered cuts, so I take the time to set up the table saw sled for a 45-degree cut to make these miters. And I couldn't quite raise the blade up high enough to cut all the way through the bottom drawers, so I had to use a handsaw just to finish off the cut. This won't be a problem for the other drawers because this is the thickest one. And even though I'm just making one drawer, I made the cuts for all the drawers so that they'd be exactly the same since they were dimensioned off the same setup. Next, I make dados for the drawer bottoms, and I'm kind of making a mistake here. My original intention was to use 1/2-inch plywood, but I couldn't find any cherry veneer core plywood. They only had 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch in MDF. I really didn't want any MDF core plywood in this project, but I kind of rushed the implications of this dimension change and end up with a little conflict between the bottoms and some of the mounting hardware that I have to kind of dance around later. Now, you may have noticed earlier that my blade is pretty dirty, so I decided to clean it and make this little time lapse and put it on Instagram, and Instagram kind of went nuts for it, so I'm showing it to you here. I'm using Rockler's Pitch and Resin Removal Kit, link in my Amazon store in the description, and because I know people will be completely irate if I don't give a budget alternative, people on Instagram suggested these as things that also work. I haven't tried them, but I thought you should know that at least one person out there thinks they work well as an alternative. Next, I dimension the darker wood that connects the drawers to the posts. Now, if you recall from the last video, the base of these splines is going to be a pivot point so that I can adjust the sag and twist of the drawers, and that requires me to cut a very small angle. So I tried to sneak up on this with some shims and just slowly chewing away at that chalk. So I was very careful to do all this and realized that I was putting the angle on the wrong side. I was making the touch point at the top instead of the bottom, which is not going to work. Luckily, they were all long enough that I could redo it, but I did that all off camera because sometimes when I get frustrated with the process, filming is just too much. So you'll have to trust me that it all worked out. Now I resaw and plane some 1/2-inch boards that I'm going to use for the back of the drawers. And I'm going to use my very non-controversial Triton dowel joiner to do the joinery for these drawers. Now, to make sure I get the layup right, I use these pins in those holes I just drilled to mark the exact location that I want this to meet up with the drawer side, and then just line it up visually and drill it out with the Triton joiner. Could I just do this with a drill press, you ask? Well, not very easily, because remember that bottom surface isn't parallel to this top surface, so I'd have to shim it up, and it'd be different for every drawer, so this is a lot faster. Use dowels to join the contrasting splines to each of the sides as well. And now it's time for the glue up. So with that finished, I dimensioned the drawer bottoms. Now remember that I had said that this plywood thickness and where I place the dado interferes with my mounting hardware a little bit. What I had to do was put a dado, or I guess it's a rabbet, on the edge of the sections that meet that hardware so that they don't interfere. It leaves a little bit of a recess in the drawer that I'm not thrilled about, but I'm not so concerned about it that I'm going to go through the massive effort of remaking all the sides. It'll be fine. And some screws holds it in place to the back of the drawer. Now I've been really curious and nervous just to see how this is actually going to feel and will it work and that sort of thing. So I put all thread into one of the post sections and mocked up the shaft so that I could mount the drawer. And it worked really well. The leveling is going to be a little bit fiddly. I'm probably going to end up taking these apart a few times, sanding, tweaking, that sort of thing, even with the hardware that I'd planned. But I don't think it's going to be anything I'm not going to be able to figure out. Well, that's it. It's going to work, people. It's going to work.